So, Claire, I've used a number of different cards in different ways in coaching, and um, sometimes feel that, that some of the ones that I've used are kind of card sort type cards, where you kind of, they're a physical way of sorting ideas. But to tell us a bit about why you developed your pack, perhaps.
Sure. Well, one thing we did was created it square so that it just made me think of Instagram, really. Yeah. And you've got the frame there, Marianne.
I've got, yes.
So you can put the picture inside it. And when we've done it with teams, they can all see each other's picture that way. So it stands up nicely and it's all in one tool. So these cards are, obviously there's many different types. Some are dull, some are colourful, some are what I would say is happy and sad, but obviously it's whatever it is to the person that's working with them. So we don't name any of them. We allow the person who's actually working with them to name the image themselves. And the other thing we did with this one is we created it around the Coach Me model, which was, well, we use it for supervision, coaching, team coaching, and mentor coaching. So it's got different parts of the model. So you can place the model around and work with that through the coaching session with the pictures. And then we've also got random words on them as well, which that's a whole new ball game, many different ways to work with them. And then also we've got question cards as a stimulus for different parts of the model. So there's about, 8 different ways you can use them. And I've got a complimentary handout that I can share afterwards with a start, middle and end and different ways, different samples of what you can play with in a session.
That would be great. Thank you. Ways that I've used, we've had a conversation before we went live into the group about some of the different card sets available for coaches and the pros and cons of some of them. And Claire raised a very interesting point, which was that some of the images on cards aren't suitable really for all audiences. Certainly I shared that I've had a very emotional response to quite a harsh image actually, and one of the card sets that's quite widely available for coaches. Claire, you were talking about something about the cultural context within which you work. Would you care to share a bit more about that, without naming names necessarily?
Of course. So obviously, we all work extensively online and globally now. And a lot of my work has been in 8 countries, actually, physically across the Middle East, and working with senior leadership teams and governments. So in that respect, I was potentially overly conscious when creating the cards. I tried to ensure that there was nothing to do with religion in there in any way. And I think, to be honest, there's only one card that gives me the tiniest alarm bell of working in some of the stricter Muslim countries, for example. Just there's one girl and she's showing a bit of a neck. And aside from that, all the rest of the cards can be played with anyone.
Yeah.
And I felt that was important.
I think so, because I think for me, the value of working with cards is, it's almost like the value of working with metaphor. One, it's the interpretation of the card. It's what sings to that person looking at them, what makes them choose a card, or what it prompts in them. That's the important thing. It's not necessarily the image itself. However, some images are, in some of the sets available, are quite provocative and a bit challenging, probably a bit too challenging. So they literally prompt a response in themselves, which is probably going a bit beyond actually noticing the more subtle responses that we might be looking for, the subtler clues, perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm necessarily explaining myself very well.
I know exactly what you mean, because sometimes we can look at a card and, this for me, I see it. And the first time I saw the picture. I loved it because I went to the blue sky. I love the color blue. It's one of my favorite colors. And it was only then that I saw the barbed wire.
Oh, yeah.
And it's interesting the way other people pick up the card, and what do they see? They see, something entirely different. They see a swirl of a pattern like a roller coaster. Other people in certain cards, they see the shadow more than the image, and at different times, I'm sure there's just relevance in all of it. What's in the shadows right now for you? What needs to come into, clearer vision in your life? So many beautiful ways we can use questions with them.
Absolutely. I was talking to you before as well about this idea about coaches being cards being a tool, and whether that's okay within masterful coaching or whatever, using tools, is that okay? You said about, can we use cards for our credentialing purposes or whatever? I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
So my view is that they are just one thing and don't be attached to them. And especially if it's for credentialing. So have them around, either online with your client or physically if you're in the room, and draw on whatever feels right in the moment. So it's interesting because for ICF Doha Wednesday night, I was doing a demo about empty chair, and quite often I blend the cards in. So in this perspective as self, which card is, demonstrating what you're experiencing right now, and then the other perspective, the second person, then the observer. Honestly, the session needed so much spaciousness, and that was actually enabling, the presence and the connection, that for me to go, okay, now let's just grab the cards, it just wasn't appropriate. And then other times with teams, it's like, that thing of stay when we want to go deeper and shift when we need a different perspective and energy. Sometimes with teams, I'm like, gosh, get the cards out. We need to totally shake things up and hear from other people in the room. And then everyone's equal because everyone has a card, or you can choose one card for the whole team or board, and they all talk from that card. And nobody gets it wrong, which is a beautiful thing for psychological safety.
That's when I don't tend to use cards one-to-one coaching, but I've used them very effectively, I think, with groups. And I say groups because not teams actually, but groups of people that don't have that level of even knowing each other, that they haven't really built any psychological safety. So I worked with some people that were long-term unemployed. They were distanced from the workplace. So there were various different reasons why they weren't in work. Some of them quite challenging and traumatic reasons why they weren't in work. And then I've also used them with groups of homeless people. I was working via a charity, and I found they were particularly useful where, even in introductory sessions where people they can't they don't know how to gauge, even things like, what's your name and how are you, and those kind of questions can really get in people's way. But actually, why have you picked this card? Why do you like it? Or what appeals to you about it? Or something can be an easier introduction to getting your voice heard in the room. And actually, in a way, it's getting your opinion across, because it gives you clues to people's value sets, I think, and their experiences, and gives people a way in to tell a story. I'm thinking, for example, that I like this card because we've got 2 pet tortoises here. But even that, I'm giving a clue about myself by that one sentence, about my home life, and it helps people bridge that gap between their persona to people that don't know them, and a little indicator about who they are and what's important to them.
And it leads in then to a space for others to ask even more questions as well. So you've alluded to, and then we can throw it out to the rest of the group or team to ask questions, and it can then go 80 on the team and 20 on the coach in terms of the way things are focusing.
What else do we need to think about, Claire? I know that you were going to share a practice with me, and I'm not sure, I know we've got a couple of people watching live, but if people do want to take part in something, please just use the opportunity to comment now and get your voice heard. Otherwise, I'll be Claire's guinea pig. We were talking about best practice as well. And are there any consideration, like ethical considerations for working with cards, perhaps we need to think about?
So for me, it's totally that nobody gets it wrong. And what anyone says in the designed relationship, it is okay for people to share whatever comes up. And no one can say no but. So even skill drills around generative thinking can be useful. And then that it can go so deep, that thing around, you know, take away the learning, but keep in the room what's been said about, you know, personal perspectives. That's really important as well. Yeah.
There's something else coming up for me about recognizing that even the most seemingly mundane image can trigger some responses in people. So as ever with our work, we need to be prepared for that. I think we need to have some resources, or just especially if we're working within groups, to know that somebody might select something and have a response to it, or open up something. So we need to have that way of handling emotions, which is within our ICF competencies, you know, and being comfortable dealing with other people's emotions as well.
Totally. And balance with that fierce courage.
Yes.
To ask those brave questions. One thing I would definitely say is, if you think this type of work is 20 minutes, add 2 hours, especially with groups and teams, because it is. So we do a 16-hour program on this, and 14 CCEs. And I think it's Saturday mornings at the moment. And one session was all about what is deeply important to you. So we, you know, had that with appreciative inquiry and Nancy Klein's thinking time, etc., all blended together. And it was deep and it was wide, and there was the whole range of emotions. And the closure piece was long, and it needed to be, just to lock everything in, and just for everyone to be able to breathe before moving on with the rest of the day.
Brilliant. I love that. I think that's advice for life, isn't it? If it's
totally.
going to be 20 minutes, give it 2 hours.
Yeah.
Claire, I'm conscious of our time, and I'm wondering if you want to use me as your guinea pig.
Sure. So what I've got here for people who are looking, if you've got cards of your own, have a go with them, or I'm just showing a few on the screen now. So that one, again, I'm not using any names. That one.
I'm going to talk it over because I'm going to make a podcast out of this. So that first one was a clock image. This one's a very bright coloured sky with bright coloured pegs on it. And there's a cactus. It's been shown. And some map pins into like a Hessian fabric.
Yeah. And I like that one. But that's,
that's a pair of scissors, is it?
Aha. So you might want to choose one of them. Don't be attached to which one you choose. Sometimes we give one, sometimes we allow people a long time to choose, and other times it's just choose any. And I guarantee, if you're like, oh, I don't know if that's the right one, there's always something that you can get from that card. Sometimes we work at face value, and other times it's really deep into the Gestalt approach of I am. So for example, I am the blade. And that's going very deep into you being the metaphor in the moment. So Marianne.
I'll pick the card.
So think of something you're working on at the moment. It may be a relationship, it may be a decision, it may be something that's going great that you want even more of. And just like a book, share the headline, share the title.
Fear in the family.
Fear in the family. And which card have you chosen to explore? If you'll share that with us.
I've chosen the Lego one. And actually, it was the card that prompted the question.
So when you look at that card, in terms of fear in the family, what stands out the most?
And actually, it didn't when I first picked it, but now it's the policeman.
And what's that about?
It's about choices and how to articulate it. Not giving choices, actually, just it's laying the law down.
Laying the law down. And when there's laying the law down, what are you experiencing somatically in your body?
I'm getting a fear response.
So look at me, stay with that. Just breathe through it. And what's there now?
There is, I'm kind of deepening into that acknowledgement of that response. Actually, it's not going away, but I'm more aware of it.
And now look back at the picture, the image. What are you more aware of there?
That if I look at one half, I can remove the policeman from the image. And that's what I want to do. I want to kind of shift perspective.
And when you shift perspective, what will that create?
See, then if I shift perspective, I see the fun, bright colours, the potential for play. Yeah.
And when there's the fun, bright colours, potential for play,
that's an excited feeling, and it's the same feeling, but it's a different perspective on the feeling. It's yeah.
What's the systemic impact for the family when there's fun, excitement and play?
Joy, actually.
And you went more serious when you said that, joy. What's joy to you?
It's a sort of a shared excitement. Yeah.
Shared excitement. And just because of time, let's try something else. Take that card.
That's the card, in case people can't imagine what I'm talking about.
And turn it upside down. And hold it far away. What's the message now?
Kind of, I'm in control of how I see things.
And when you're in control, who are you being?
Actually, I'm not being the policeman. I think I was the policeman. I'm not the policeman. But there is something I need to do, because now, for some reason, turning it upside down, my perspective on the colour has changed and it's gone a bit duller. Perhaps I think I'm being an extreme between joy and fear. and actually perhaps things upside down are a bit blander. No,
It's
I think if I look again, I need to refocus now. And if I look again, the sparkle's coming back in the picture.
So hold it up high. In closing this session, what's the final awareness and something you may choose to act upon?
I can choose how I look at things.
Fabulous. And you look in control there.
I feel in control. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much for that. Oh.
And you may want to do a bit of journaling later and reflect on that even more.
Thank you. That was a very timely few moments of very useful work. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Claire, we are coming to the end of our time now. We have got some people joining in. Is there anything that I'm hoping that they've just been following the process themselves, but do we need to do anything to wrap up today?
So something I do is I put the cards together at the end, and if you've not got cards with you, just put the things around you together, maybe sit differently. For me, it's almost, physically closing before we move on.
Okay.
Maybe even a deep breath.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Completion.
All sorted. Claire, thank you so much for today.
Pleasure.
I'm going to stop the recording.
And thank you for inviting me.
And I will, I'll be in touch with you, and I will send you some links and all of that stuff.
Fabulous.
Thank you. I'll tag you as well underneath so that you can see any comments or any follow-ups, and you may choose to perhaps put some details down so that people can follow up with you if they need to.
Brilliant. And if I've never had anyone live in my group. I'm not very trendy. If you ever want to come and be live in my group with whatever you like to share, then you're very welcome. We'll
Thanks,
make it
Claire.
happen.
I don't have any snazzy products like you do.
So what? You're a coach. You've got them all inside.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.